incident that happened in Minneapolis, I'm telling you, your officers here care about you. And it was pretty clear when I was trying to make the decision whether to bring the department in. I kept checking with the watch commanders. I would call them late. I'm sure they got tired of me calling. I was calling 4 or 5 times during the night to check on them. And all I heard was, "Sir, everything's fine, everything's fine." In fact, residents are coming up saying, "Stay safe." So I get that the community understands what's going on there, and I appreciate that. We're here to serve you, and we appreciate the feedback that we're getting. Yeah, there are people on social media that will attack us, but that's okay, because I know the community supports us. There may be some that don't, and they have every right to not support us, or they may have a reason that maybe we did something wrong. I wish they would come talk to me so that we could figure out what we did wrong so that we could correct those issues. Are we fully staffed? That was one of the questions. We're just about there. We froze some positions because of COVID and trying to make sure that the city stays financially sound, which it is. So there's some frozen positions. We're looking at hiring one more officer. That's going to give us 30 of the 33 positions that are filled. And like I said, we have a lot of young officers, and they want to do the work. So with 30 officers, we're doing well. Do we have an officer dedicated to community relations? No, we don't. But then this is where I want to hear from the community. I want to hear what we need. If that's something that you guys would like, then voice it here. This is where we're going to make the change. Like I said, we live in a state that's very progressive in law enforcement training and pushing the envelope to make sure that we're doing the right thing. Riverside County, do we have riots? We had one incident and it was shut down right away. That's because of the sheriff we have and the police chiefs we have. Riverside County is great. We were talking to each other every Monday and every Friday for an hour. Everybody's saying, "What's going on in your city? How can we help?" That goes on twice a week. And I tell you what, the sheriff for Riverside County is second to none. He is outstanding. He gives you whatever you need. We had to ask for some stuff, and it's not, "Hey, I'll get back to you." It's just tell us what you need and we'll get them there. Especially Coachella Valley. I just wanted to do a thank you to Chief Reyes, Chief Crum, Chief Washburn, and Captain Belli from Palm Desert Station. We have an issue that we're trying to deal with that borders our city, but is actually a sheriff's department issue. I called him on the weekend. He called me back. And he's all, "How many officers do you need to take care of that problem?" I'll do it right now. I said, "Whoa, let's talk about it first and then we'll figure it out." But that's how quick we get a response back from everybody. We have some amazing chiefs out here. I probably have the least experience of everybody here, but they're great mentors. If I need anything, I can call them. I call Chief Reyes all the time. He is outstanding. Anybody on this list in Riverside County, I can call at a moment's notice and they'll drop things just to help us out. So we try to do the same. There was an issue that came out that was 8 can't wait, and before I could even get those words out of my mouth, the deputy chief was on it, and that's what you're seeing in your hand. So I'm gonna let him talk about that.
And if anybody needs, I have more, if anybody needs a copy.
Does everybody get a copy of that?
Raise your hand, I'll bring it around.
I'm gonna kind of go quick over it just because I want to open it up. Everybody here for questions and stuff, but there's a lot of information here that may answer some of the questions that you came here to ask. And it gives you an idea of where we are in policy, how we operate. It's not all encompassing, but if you've heard of the 8 Can't Wait campaign, it's put on by Campaign Zero. It's really taken off over the last couple of weeks. And basically what it is, it's a private group, national group, and they have 8 specific categories where they want to see police reform done. Now, when you look at this is on the national level. So a lot of this, as we talk about it, a lot of this is already done in California and with Desert Hot Springs Police Department. So California, as the chief was mentioning, we're much different than Minneapolis. We're much more progressive, California overall, than most other agencies throughout the nation. Police departments throughout California, they're controlled by posts, police officer standards and trainings, and that's what guides us in our policies and procedures of how we operate and how officers are trained. So real quick, I'm just going to kind of go, this touches on the 8 topics that are in the 8 Can't Wait campaign. The first one is the chokehold and strangleholds. We do not authorize, we do not use, we do not teach chokeholds or strangleholds. You hear that term a lot. You've heard a lot the last couple of weeks. You'll hear, I'm sure, in the coming months. But that is not something that we teach with the Desert Hot Springs Police Department or anywhere in California law enforcement agencies. You may also hear our term of carotid neck restraint or carotid hold. That is a procedure that we do not authorize with the Desert Hot Springs Police Departments. Other agencies may still use that. It's a technique, it's a physical restraint that's probably been around for over 20 years. I remember when I came on, it was a technique that we used. But over the years, people agencies realize it's not the best tool to use, tools to use. So we do not have that as an option for our officers to use with the Desert Hot Springs Police Department. Another topic is de-escalation and the requirement that officers use de-escalation and they go to de-escalation training. This is again something in California with the Desert Hot Springs Police Department that we've already done. AB Bill 392 and Senate Bill 230, which were enacted last year, required mandatory training for officers to receive de-escalation training, and that's updated training. So right now, officers with the Desert Hot Springs Police Department, when they go through the police academy, they receive de-escalation training. In addition, our officers have received a 4-hour training block in de-escalation, and they were scheduled and will be scheduled this year for an 8-hour class that's put on by post. Some of them already should have been through that, but with the COVID, a lot of those training classes were put on hold. But within the last couple of weeks, they've started to come back online. So we expect by the end of 2020 that all of our officers will have been through that 8-hour post de-escalation class. Another topic is the requirement to give a warning before shooting. This one's kind of tough. It would be fantastic if we can do that. Our policy does not require that officers have to, but we want them to if it's practical, that they can and they have the time. Shootings or any type of use of force, they are very rapidly moving situations. They happen very quickly. Most shootings are over within 2 to 3 seconds, but we do want our officers, and when we train our officers to give that warning, to give a command, please stop, please, to give them that command. So it's ingrained in them, so it's second nature to them. But it is one of those ones that we can't say that every single time, if you don't do this, that they're going to be in violation, but it is something we train for. They're required to exhaust all alternatives before shooting. Very passionate topic for many people, and it's one that we're continually working on with our officers. 835 of the Penal Code, that's what authorizes officers. It tells us when we can use deadly force, when we can't use deadly force. So the law in California is very clear about when deadly force can be used, and that's constantly, not only in the academy, but continually updated training with the officers that we push that out there to make sure that they understand that when they train based on 835 of the Penal Code, which lets them know when deadly force can and when deadly force cannot be used. Always, always, always in training, it is a last resort. It is not the first option that officers are trained to use. The duty to intervene, and this is something really, if you look at Minneapolis, if one of those officers would just step forward and intervene, we'd be here today, but we wouldn't be in the state of the nation that we're in. Our policy requires officers to intervene. It's written policy. If they witness excessive force, it is an officer's duty to intervene and stop that excessive force, and not only stop it, but then report it to that person's supervisor. So that is a policy that is in place already here. Require comprehensive reporting. This is another one that we already do in California and at the Hot Springs Police Department. Any use of force that an officer used, several things have to be done. There's a very articulate and thorough reporting process that they have to follow. They have to follow, notify a supervisor of that use of force, and then we as supervisor, either myself, the chief, or our commanders, reviews every single use of force that happens to make sure it's within policy. Two other things, required use of force continuum. That's another tough one. When I first came on 32 years ago, we had a use of force continuum. And basically what that was kind of like a chart, a spreadsheet, if you will. It says, if this person does this, this is what you can do. Well, over the years, it doesn't work that way. Again, everything is evolving, it's evolving very quickly. The tools that officers and trainings that we have changed. But what we do push out, what we do to train the officers in is de-escalation, slow things down, don't rush in, get more resources to you, unless it's absolutely less necessary for an officer to tackle something, take something on by themselves. We prefer that they back up and get some more resources in and slow things down. And that's extremely important, especially with mental health people out there today. Because of the mental health situation, officers are running more and more folks with mental health issues. And they need to understand that backing up and slowing down and not rushing in. Usually somebody with a mental health issue, the uniform scares them, the authority of a police officer when they're coming in and telling what to do, that scares them. So the training is that they slow down, bring in some extra resources to that. And then the last one was the banning at shooting vehicles. This is another one that we do not strictly ban, but we do ask officers a couple things. One is we do not want officers to put themselves in front of a moving vehicle. They need to move themselves out of that path. So we don't want to be the cause of having to use deadly force. Shooting at vehicles, in the movies it looks great, but in real life it doesn't work. It doesn't usually stop a vehicle. It causes more problems than it helps the situation. So what we want officers to do is they are allowed to shoot at a moving vehicle only as an absolute last resort, that they cannot get out of the way to a place of safety, or that vehicle is threatening them with deadly force or somebody else. And if you think something like in the past few years, which we've seen more and more of, is the vehicles being used as a weapon. And we see it in terrorist situations, and that's really what that covers. So if an officer at, for instance, a street fair or something like that, and someone has intent to harm people and they're using that vehicle to harm them, and that's the last resort of the officer, we want them to have that option, but again, it's not the first option. The first option is to get out of the way of that vehicle if possible. So those are the 8 topics in that 8 Can't Wait campaign. Maybe it answers some questions you came here to ask, but we'll open it up if the chief is ready. And if you have questions about this or anything else, that's what we're here for. So please, it's your show, and we want to hear what you have to say.
Okay, real quick, before we start the questions, I just want to thank some people for showing up. Lee Eastman on the Public Safety Commission, Councilman Gardner's in the back, and Councilman Jan Pye, Councilwoman Jan Pye is in the back too. So who wants to start off with the questions? This is all you. Yes, ma'am.
I would like to know, are psychological screenings used in the hiring process here at the DHS Police
Yes, ma'am.
Department?
Yes.
Okay.
Excuse me. I was just notified that they can't hear you on the live feed. Would you mind stepping up here? You can still use your mask and speak through them.
So if you guys just walk around here,
My head is outside spacing out.
And when you're responding, can you please respond with the microphone? They're not able to hear you very well.
It's on. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, my question was, are psychological screenings used in the hiring process here for the DHS Police Department? Just in the little research that I did, and if they are, is it just a written test that's given?
That's a post requirement, so yes, we do that, and it's a written, and also they speak to a psychologist.
Right, then, okay. And I want to know how often are psych evaluations performed after a person is hired and officially on duty?
It's when they initially get hired.
So once they go out into the field and they start policing, they don't have any more evaluations or anything?
We offer counseling within our department. We belong to the counseling team. So if they choose to use that, they are able to. It's anonymous. It's a service that we provide to our officers. They're not mandated to do it now.
Well, I was just thinking, wondering, if that wouldn't be something to do, with all the things that you have to encounter day to day, unpleasant situations and, things going to the left and all that, it would probably be a good thing to psychologically see where that officer's head is after they've been out on duty for a few months.
Yeah, and that's why our department offers that to the officers. We don't mandate it, but it's a service that we provide.
Maybe it should be mandated.
Okay, well, I take your point. Who's next? Yes, sir.
Hello, everyone. Hello, thank you for the opportunity to have us here and to, be engaging in this conversation. I definitely appreciate it. My name is Nicholas Leone. I was born and raised here. I work for the school district, substitute teacher. One of the things that I think is, we've been seeing this kind of violence across the country for years. For me personally, I wonder how much footage we haven't seen. Going back from like Rodney King, from that time to now, how much footage have we not seen? And as a response to what's happened, some people are saying, we should defund the police, and that's not what I'm here to say. I think one of the ways that we can change things is how we respond to the situation. So, and that might be through, and from some of the research I've done is that the specialized response team that, if someone's, I think you brought up mental health issues. If someone has mental health issues and they're out front of a store, people call police. They want something done. And you're saying that seeing a police officer come, it might not be the best response to that particular situation. So maybe like a specialized response team that can respond to maybe like non-violent situations, and maybe are there general categories of the calls that you receive, and do you think that maybe a specialized response team could respond to those calls as opposed to a police officer responding to a more violent situation? So I don't know, that's a lot for you to chew on, but.
No, I totally agree. Mental health issues shouldn't be a police department issue. However, it is, because there's nobody else. There are places that we can take the individual now. Obviously, it's a hold, it's not a detention, but I would love our officers to be able to focus on fighting crime and not being able to go out and have a special response team go out. I totally agree. Law enforcement in general, if you were to take the mental health issue away, that would give us more time. However, there is no such team right now. There are specialists that we could send them to, but I agree with you. If we had systems like that, we would love it. It's same with the homeless. Homelessness is not a crime. Do they need help? Yes, they do. But a lot of times this stuff is given to us because there's nobody else to do it. So I totally agree. If there was a system that we could utilize, that when someone has a mental health issue or someone is homeless and needs help, that we can call out a special team, I totally agree with that. However, at this point, it is a law enforcement issue, and so we're dealing with that. But I agree with you. That would be great. Thank you so much.
Hello.
Hi.
My question is, the economy has tanked everywhere. Are you expecting a bunch of cuts to the department, and what do you think will happen there?
Okay. We had a great city manager and a great city council that took care of that for us. In the past, it hasn't always been that way. This year, even though COVID hit, they are working on a budget that they're going to work on throughout the year, and we're not looking at any layoffs. We're not looking at any pay cuts. We're going to see how this year goes through. Each department in the city has looked at their budget and tried to cut areas that they could, and so the city of Desert Hot Springs is doing well. We can't say that for everybody else, because some cities have tourism and it's affected them a lot more. I just can't thank the city manager and city council enough, because I couldn't say that like 4 or 5 years ago when we were taking budget cuts of 40%, and we lost a lot of good officers because of that. But we are in a great situation, and I give all the credit to the city manager Maynard and the city council, two of which you have here. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. My name is, one second. My name is Frank Elmore. You mentioned about the website, and I see here it's cityofdhs.org/police-department. Is that the website?
I believe so. If you go to the city website, there's also a drop-down menu that you can go to the police department.
Okay. Are you guys, DHS police, obligated to wear cameras?
Yes, we have body cameras.
Obligated?
Yes.
Okay. And then I wonder about, is DHS Police Department affiliated anyhow with a union?
There's a police officers association, yes, that they belong to.
Is that county?
No, it's through, it's the City of Desert Hot Springs Police Officers Association.
Okay.
And that's for sergeants and below. Administration is not part of that.
But all officers are
Correct.
required?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
No problem, sir. Thank you.
My question is about the duty to intervene. I really was happy to see that, and I'm really happy to see police departments announcing their support for it. My concern is I don't ever see it happening in the cases we see on social media. So my real question for you is, in this police department, what disciplinary procedures would you take if someone failed to intervene in a case like if we had a video of police abuse and you saw 2 officers, one of whom is being abusive, the other is standing by and basically enabling it, what disciplinary procedures would happen to the officer who stood by and did nothing? And similarly, what disciplinary procedures would you use if they failed to report it?
Okay, so there's a process, and rather than hog up all this time, I'm going to let the deputy chief answer this one. He's well versed in that. He comes from a big department, so I know our answer, but he'll give you a detailed answer because he's worked for a much bigger agency too. The process is the same, but now it's time for him to shine too. So.
So first off, a couple of things when it comes to police discipline and disciplining officers. There's a thing called POBAR, it's the Police Officer Bill of Rights. So really like any organization, when there is a misconduct by an officer, they have certain rights, and those rights have to do with how we investigate that misconduct. And it really has to do with how the interview goes, what information, whether it's an administrative matter or if could potentially be a criminal matter, and what rights they are told at what time, and then what we're allowed to release to the public. Like any organization that has employees, there's certain information that is private that they won't release to the public, and the police department is no different. But as we follow those police officer bill of rights, we will do an investigation, and if it is founded that an officer violated a department policy, such as the duty to intervene, there is a discipline matrix, and it can be anything up to termination. The discipline matrix goes from a verbal warning all the way up to termination, and in between that you see things such as suspensions, written reprimands, that type of thing. So it depends on the severity of the incident, of what happened, and that will determine where the discipline of that falls into place. Did that answer all your question? Okay. Okay. And before the next question comes up, I want to backtrack a little bit because I think I used the term POST a couple times. And I want to make sure you understand what POST is. It's California, it's Police Officer Standards and Training. And again, if I didn't explain it enough, so they're based out of Sacramento, but that's an organization that, again, directs us on how we train. It mandates what training an officer has to go through, not only in the police academy, but every officer, 18 to 24 months, goes through another 40-hour training cycle. Some of that is refresher training, such as de-escalation, CPR, first aid, that type of stuff, and then there's new training that comes in. So the training that an officer gets once they leave the academy, it continues throughout their entire career. It never stops. So I just want to make sure you all understand kind of how that works here in California. I don't know outside of California how other agencies work. I would imagine they have something similar, but don't hold me on that because I'm not really sure. But that is how California works. Another question?
Good evening, gentlemen. See, I have a couple of questions. The first one is, lately, as of lately, the police officer on a motorcycle, I haven't seen him for quite a while. Number two, how many of the police officers have a military background?
Sure.
And DHS?
Sure.
And this is an age-old problem that seems to never get fixed. What about the fireworks?
I'm going to jump in just on the first one, then I'll give it to Chief, because I'm a motor cop at heart. And like I said, I spent about 10 years on the motorcycle. And we have our motorcycle that's the 15th of this month is when we expect to have it back out in the field and work in the streets of Palm Avenue and everything like that. So we're very excited to get a motor officer back out there. He's just waiting for his uniforms to come in, but we expect that to happen here in the next few days. We'll have it out there soon. So.
Okay, so Officer Hazen, who was our motor officer, got promoted to sergeant. So that took him off the bike. It was a hard decision for him because he loved that bike and he loved the work, but he went ahead and got promoted. That's why we were looking for another officer. We have one that was trained that just passed his probation, so he will be out there. Military, we do have officers. I can't tell you right off the bat how many, but we do have officers that have military backgrounds. Unfortunately, that wasn't a question I was prepared for, so I don't know how many, but I know there are. I'm one of them. So we do have people that were in the military. Fireworks. Fireworks. Unfortunately, we're at that time of the season again where they're starting to pick up. July 1st to the 4th, we will have code enforcement as well as an officer go out and start really watching that. I know it started up already again. There is an ordinance and you can get a citation for $1,000. What the officer has to do is actually watch who's setting them off, which complicates matters a little bit, especially when we don't have someone dedicated to go look at that. But I understand, that's a quality of life issue. And that's another thing that we need to really stress here is I get phone calls for trees that are going over someone's property. I get phone calls of barking dogs, fireworks. So rest assured that the city doesn't have this major crime wave. We are a small city that takes care of itself, and the residents here are well protected. And if I'm fielding calls like that, things are going well in the city. I don't mind that. Obviously, we have a code enforcement that's assigned to the police department as well as animal control that's assigned to the police department. So rest assured, I love getting those calls, because if that's the biggest problem we have, I'm happy about that. But I do know fireworks are an issue, and we have been getting complaints, so the officers know that, and they know it's about time to start picking things up again.
See, the bad thing about it is that it isn't so much when your windows rattle, then you know they're closed. And the dogs, you can't leave your dog alone on the 4th of July, because if it's a big dog, he's gonna be gone. My dog, I take him with me, because if I'm not going to be home, because I fear for him, because that's a traumatic thing.
No, and I agree.
And and another thing, it kind of backs down. We all know what the ordinances are. And you call the police, by the time you turn the corner, they see you coming. They're in the house with their feet up, drinking beer. I mean, so it's pretty good.
No, I know, it's hard. It's hard. That's why we put the extra code enforcement officer and the extra officer out there. That's a tough situation. The fine's there. We do cite people. There have been people that have been cited. So we will do that. Do we stop everybody? No. What it's done is force some people to actually do it in their backyard, so that they're not caught. But there's ways around that, and we try to do our best. But it's a hard ordinance to cite someone for. But we will have people out there.
I worked one 4th of July, and I was impressed. When I come down my street, there they were sitting on the corners.
Yeah, and I agree. It's an issue for the dogs. We have animal control that night we bring all the dogs into the inside, and we play music for them. I think last year it was country western. So it's a concern. I understand that. No, you aren't the only one. Trust me. That as we get closer, we start getting more and more phone calls, and I understand it's frustrating. You also have PTSD with military veterans that this affects. So it's a quality of life issue that I wish we could solve. We could do citations. Is it going to prevent individuals from doing it? Not all the time. And I mean, it's starting now. We're still in June. We're still at the beginning of June, and so I understand, and we do get people out there. And I know there was someone that called to thank us because we ended up, I don't think we cited somebody, but we ended up going out to the property and telling them to knock it off.
We must have gotten one within the last 2 weeks, because they're not the whole, my window's not shaking.
No, I know there was one in the local area that someone called to thank us because they had stopped it. So,
Thank you, sir.
no problem. Yes, sir.
Hi, hello. I've got a couple of questions to ask. I've had the experience of growing up in 2-3 areas who have had departments that have been in the news over the years, including Minneapolis, Buffalo, and Albuquerque. So I have to admit that I've grown up with a great consciousness of the good and the bad as far as your profession. I think you guys have an incredibly difficult job. I also think it has been more difficult by the lack of investment that we see in mental health resources. Even though I have to admit in certain instances, I think there are police departments that certainly need to be defunded, abolished, or started over. As a general rule, what have people like your board of supervisors do? I think it's more a county and state issue to go out there and make your all's lives easier, because they're expecting police people to be at the front line of defense when it's really a lot of people that are like mentally ill, drug addicted, and victims of all these things of despair. So I'm very interested in that question first of all, and then I'll ask you 2 hardball questions after that really briefly.
Okay, so as far as the mental health issue and what we do, we provide that service. That Chief Mondera started it, the counseling team. I'm 2 classes short of getting my master's in psychology, so that's something near and dear to my heart. Counseling is a good thing. The officers, if they choose to use it, it's anonymous, so I hope they use it because they do see a lot of bad stuff. Been in law enforcement 28 years, and I'm telling you, it affects me. You see a lot of stuff and you get desensitized to some stuff, but those things I try to encourage officers to use. But of course we cannot mandate it. As far as some of the crime and individuals that need other services, we try to do that. There's laws that have been reduced from felonies to misdemeanors to try to help that issue out. Doesn't really help. I don't really know. I mean, you can walk down the street with a pocket full of meth or cocaine, and what you're going to get is they're going to pull those drugs off you. They're going to give you a citation, and they're going to have you walk off because it's a misdemeanor now, and they won't hold you. Now, what does an individual that's under the influence? Typically, they don't have a job. So now we took something that they need, and what are they going to go do? They're going to shoplift, they're going to break into some place, and it just aggravates the situation even more. It's not a fix. All it is just a minor deterrence until something else goes on, and you're seeing more and more of that.
Yeah, excuse me. It leads me into another issue. I was kind of looking more at, I think that there's been a failure of political leadership to invest a lot of mental health resources. You folks aren't doing with what you just said. Another thing that concerns me, and I saw it.
Into the mic.
Speak into the microphone.
Oh, okay, I apologize. Is that better? Usually I'm so loud everybody can hear me. Okay, number 2. I grew up in New Mexico, where they have this really disturbing pattern. Policemen, a lot of them were in trouble in the military. You get hired in New Mexico as a police officer, or county sheriff's employee, or even state police trooper. They get busted for bad things, not only excessive force, but I mean really, really, really bad things. And next thing you know, guys working in Albuquerque, or the guys working in Las Cruces. What is your department, and frankly, locally here in Riverside County, what are they doing to make sure that there's some sort of registry or something?
Post-abandoned background, part of that background is obviously going through someone's background, doing a medical, doing a psychological. And then it's up to each police chief or the sheriff to review that background and see what's in that background. A lot of times they get weeded out at the start. There's obviously, the selection process is difficult. You have an oral interview, you have a short written. If you get past that, then you go into a background. The background gets looked at by the chief of police. We interview the individual, and then they end up either being hired or let go. Now, just because you're hired doesn't mean that you're gonna stay. There's usually a year or a year and a half probation based on whether they came from another agency or if they're just starting out. Our police department, I can speak for our police department, not everybody that starts with us ends up with us. That year and a half gives us the opportunity to watch them work. If it looks like they're not going to be a fit for the police department, then they are let go. And that's happened several times here. We expect a certain criteria that has to be met for you to work in Desert Hot Springs. Just because you get hired does not mean that you're going to pass probation. And it's time consuming, and it also costs the city a lot of money. But if you're not gonna be a fit for here, that's what probation's for, and you're gonna be let go. Doesn't mean that you can't go work at another agency. It just means you didn't fit with our agency.
Yeah, but that to a degree is what concerns me from the experiences and obviously what we're reading in the media of late about the background system people who are in the news. My third question is,
Last question. Last question.
and as I said, three. My third question is that I've been very concerned about the militarization of the situation proposed by people the past few weeks. How much surplus military equipment does the department have, if any? Do you use it? And I'm just kind of curious the nature of weaponry that you all received from that program.
We have not received anything from the military.
Hallelujah. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hello. There's a couple of things that I have wondered about. The PIO, Public Information Officer, as far as a dedicated job to that person, contact other cities as to see how they work it so that this person actually does something else. And sometimes, part-time PIO.
Okay.
Something to look into.
Well-
What other cities are doing that.
Okay. There's our PIO. Doria Williams, and she's the assistant city manager, so she's actually does this part-time, but she gets woken up at 2 in the morning and loves it. That's the best thing for her, is she loves getting up at 2 in the morning to handle those calls.
And regarding the fireworks, a solution may be to get a police drone, fly it up, so it's higher than people can hear it, so they're not shooting at it, obviously. But it could be used as other things too, but it could be high enough to identify where fireworks are being launched from, and a quicker response, so that the unit on the ground can go right to where they know it is.
Yeah, and we
Something to look into.
No, we do have a drone. However, we also have to look at people's privacy too. So there's privacy issues, and we have a policy. Our policy and procedure manual is online, so you can look at that. But we do have a drone. It's mainly used for traffic accidents to take pictures.
Yeah.
But that's
something to look into.
yeah, it's a
It is
suggestion.
at night, so
Yep.
privacy, if it's, 500 feet up, you're not gonna see much as far as peeking at windows or anything.
Yep.
But to see where fireworks are being launched from.
Okay, so
And one last thing is that we have a problem of excessive speed on the number of streets, being on 6th ourselves, between Cactus and West. It's like a drag strip. I mean, there's not 2 cars racing, but one car is just going for it. My suggestion would be like what they have in Cathedral City and what they have in Palm Springs on Estrella, is those 3 feet wide speed bumps. Put them halfway between Cactus and West, and halfway between Cactus and Palm. And do just on the numbered streets, just to see the impact of that, to slow these people down.
yeah, and part of that's on the police department. I understand.
I know some efforts
yeah.
on, and, the city council and all that, but I just
Yeah.
wanted to get it.
No issues whatsoever, sir. I understand that. Traffic, we're getting more and more traffic out here because more and more people are coming out to the valley to live. They realize that houses are cheaper out here. It's actually less traffic out here. I cannot believe what LA is like now. I used to live down that way, and you go down there and you're guaranteed to be stopped in traffic someplace. Unfortunately, when I moved out here and started with the police department in 2005, even Palm Drive was slow. I mean, you could go 4 or 5 blocks without even seeing another car. It's not like that anymore. We see the traffic building up, and that's something that the motor, if you call and let us know on the street, we can do extra patrol to try to calm that situation down.
Okay, I'm looking forward to the motorcycle unit.
He's looking forward to getting out there too.
Because on Palm Drive, they're going like 60 miles an hour, and this is by Pizza Hut.
we could do that. And also CHP works real closely with us, so they have a portion of that, and they're more than willing to come out, so we can do that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I was close.
Hello? Yes.
Thank you, Chief, for the job you're doing. I'm proud of you and Desert Hot Springs. You guys do good work. You had mentioned earlier about Facebook presence, and that's really not your cup of tea, but whether it's Doria or whoever it is, I think it's really an important place to keep the community relations strong and to be visible and present. So I would just like to encourage you somehow, or maybe it's those of us who are on the group, who are on the pages, to reference the police department when somebody has their hands up in the air and they're upset about something. But just want to encourage a little more.
No, and I agree. I understand that. The thing that we were finding too is that on social media, people were starting to report something on social media and it never get reported to the police department, and then we lose that contact and we lose that ability to respond to that call. But I get that. That is a flaw that we need to fix. The deputy chief's already on social media monitoring, but that is something that I will work on. I understand that we need to do that. With that being said, though, I still am not going to engage in a conversation over social media. It'll probably be a one posting that I understand and please give me a call, because like I said, a lot of that stuff can be handled very easily with either a phone call or meeting in person. And a lot of this, we're leaving out important people, like the watch commander, the sergeant, because a lot of times people will make appointments to see me or ask me to look into something, and guess where I'm going? I'm going to that sergeant. And so the time that is spent trying to get a hold of me, even though I'm there a lot, you can call the watch commander and get the problem resolved right then and there. We also have some commanders, and then we have the deputy chief. So not that I'm discouraging appointments with me, but if something needs to be done and done quickly, that's the way to go, because we have a sergeant that's on 24 hours a day, and he could solve a lot of those problems. And if he doesn't, then I have commanders that are there, as well as the deputy chief. I'm always willing to meet with people, but what I want to try to get across is if you have something that needs to be done like right away, those are the people to go through, because they're going to solve your problem within hours, if not sooner. If it's just a problem that can wait, then yeah, we have commanders, we have deputy chiefs, and we have myself. I have no problem taking appointments or going out to talk to people. I just want to stress that we have other people that can solve that problem right away. But I'm always available too.
You also touched on something that's really big on social media right now, and that is bringing on other departments or volunteers or people trained in social issues that you find yourself dragged into. Is there anything being developed within the city or within the police department to have those resources more readily available to the police?
We're always looking at ways to improve. Obviously, the mental health issue, there are agencies out there that, unfortunately, a lot of times they go to the eastern side. We need them out on the western side. There's a place in Palm Springs that's helping us out with that. We also have homeless. We have 3 officers on the homeless committee team that are out there. Councilwoman Pye is very active in the homeless issue. So there's things that we encourage. We also have a program that has kind of, we need to pick up, and Lee Eastman is part of that, and that's the COP program, where we utilize volunteers in the police department to do various things. And we have retirees in the city that have some expertise that obviously the police department would love. So that's another program that I would really encourage people to get involved in. It's community-oriented policing, and it's a COP program. It's dwindling, correct? And COVID didn't help anything, but that's a program that's very important to the police department, because a lot of times when we're out on a traffic accident or a crime scene for hours, they're the ones that are actually doing the traffic control to free up officers to handle those calls.
And just quickly, maybe not quickly, what are some of the things in the department that you are working on to improve, to make the department better?
Bringing on a deputy chief for one, and it helps out a lot, but this is a start of it too. Obviously, we haven't gone through our mission statement, stuff like that. It's been a while. It's always good to update those things. It's always good to look at our policy and procedures, and obviously that's being done again. It's constantly being done. So there's things that we want to improve on. Forums like this where people will bring to us issues, those are things that obviously we need to do, and now that I'm freed up a little bit more, we can do more of that, and it's bringing the community out to let us know what are the issues and what they want to address. Obviously, we have a motor. We have two motors. We have one filled. There's other specialty positions that I would like to fill. We have 2 canines that we didn't have a few months ago. That's a new program. So there's various things that we're looking into. We're looking into joining a task force for stolen vehicles too. So there's a lot of stuff that's out there, and we're trying to prepare for. It's forums like this where it helps us go into a specific vision that the community wants. So this is why it's important for us to have some stuff like this, so we can see what the residents want.
Thank you.
I kept saying last question because I told Chief we could go about an hour, and it's 7:10, so I want to respect the time as well. So I wasn't being rude. He did say that if your answers weren't sufficient, that you can contact him directly, and he'll be more thorough in his answers, okay? I do have 3 from social media, and I want to ask them out of the way. First of all, if you need someone to ride a motorcycle, let me know. I don't need a badge or anything, just give me one. I'm good, all right? I've been asking her for a motorcycle for a while. First question was, is there a way that we can establish something like an event where we can meet the new officers as a community, as opposed to seeing them on the street? Second question is, how do you all feel about national oversight of police officers, where someone would come in and actually, just oversee a lot of the incidents that happen on the street? And then lastly, we have 2 of our middle school principals here and a high school principal. What happened?
Oh, I was just saying.
Oh, okay. They brought a fan club? What's going on? The third question is, with the principals being here, what can we do to make the officers present on the campuses, and not in a derogatory way, but a way to get to know the kids so they don't fear the police whenever they see them? Those 3, that's all I got. What we're done.
Okay, how about I'll handle 1 and 3, and then 2, you want to deal with, because I have a question. The motorcycle. So, I think, 1, the meeting the officers, we haven't had it in quite a while. We're thinking about an open house at the police department. So that hasn't been done in several years. That is something that I think we could do, and that way we can have officers all there. You can come in, you could meet, you can see the police station, see what it's like, and maybe we could throw something in the back, barbecue, or some items for the kids, jump houses, stuff like that. So I will try to get that done within the next few months.
Barbecue, I know about.
Okay, so we're all set. We're all set. You got my promise. Within the next 6 months, we're going to have an open house at the police department.
All right.
What was that third question again?
The high school, middle school principals, what can we do to...
Do you guys want to come up and speak?
Yes.
We have Officer Fudge that I think is doing a wonderful job at the high school. We do have the motor officer was out at several of the elementary schools and the middle school getting people to, there's programs that on grants that we go out and we talk to the kids, but that's something that we could do. We could do more of that. It was done last year. We have several pictures. I think there's even a picture in that book of one of the events. If not, it got taken out. But we do go to the schools. That's something that we'll see how what happens this school year, because I don't think we have a start of the school year yet, right?
August 5th, we just don't know what
So we do have a school resource officer that handles the school, and we can do a better job about that too. The oversight committee, that's something that we could talk about. That's good. That's something that's being talked about now. So there's a lot of legislative bills that are out there, and that's one of the things that's being proposed. There's a ton of stuff that's being proposed, and like I said, California kind of leads the nation in legislative stuff. So I'm actually sitting on the legislative committee for the police officers, so I'm one of the chiefs that sits on that. So trust me, there's all kinds of stuff that's out there, and there's just stuff that we're going to be going through and dealing with because of what happened, the tragic situation. So there's a lot of legislation that's going to come through. But before we go, I want to allow the deputy chief to do some speaking because I took all the time. So he's here, and the city manager will be on me if I don't let him speak because I'm going out on too many calls. So if he's watching, hey, deputy chief's going to speak.
I'll just finish up. I had a few comments, and I'm going to go back to the national oversight. And one thing, as you all get to know me, what you realize is you'll get a straight answer from me. We may not always agree on things, but I respect your opinion. I respect my opinion. And my opinion comes just from my years of experience in law enforcement. I'm not a fan of a national oversight. I don't think one size fits all. Every police department is different. There is a somewhat national oversight already set in place in our state. It's a consent decree. So when there are departments that have issues, they can, the Department of Justice can come in and monitor their actions. But what I believe is that police department should be directed by the community it serves. So what I prefer is that you folks and the folks in Desert Hot Springs, those are the ones watching us and letting us know when we do good, when we don't do good, and what we can do better, and what direction you want us to go. So that's how I look at that. And I know that's going to be a big topic over the next several months and stuff. And if that's what comes out from all this, and that what comes out with this, we will adjust to that. But that's kind of where I start on my platform with that. And it kind of leads me into my other thing I want to talk about is just, I've had the opportunity, so obviously I told you I've been in law enforcement a long time. There was a gentleman, I don't know where he went, that was up here. I think he said he lived for some time in Minneapolis, in New Mexico, and Buffalo and stuff. So I've had the opportunity, and I'm kind of biased on this, and I'll admit that up front. I've had the opportunity over the last 10 years to travel throughout the nation and sit on probably over 100 police departments on their assessment panels. And what that is, I sit when they're doing promotions, when they're promoting officers to sergeants, sergeants to lieutenants, and whatnot. I sit on those panels and assist with those assessments for those agencies. So it's given me an opportunity to really see how departments throughout the nation operate. And like I told you in the beginning, I'm a little bit biased. I truly believe that California is probably, when it comes to law enforcement, the best in this nation. And I say that after 30 years, policing is not the same now than it was when I started 30 years ago. And in order for me to continue in this career as long as I had, I've had to adjust. I've had to change my thinking on how we should do law enforcement. And I know my commanders in the month that I've been here are already tired of hearing this because last month I've pounded it into them so much. I do not like the status quo, and I do not believe in perfection. And I say that because if you think you're perfect, then you're just stagnant, and you're not working to get better. And there's always room for improvement. Individually, as a department, as a city, as a nation. So status quo is never good. Just because we've done something for so long doesn't mean it's the right way. And the last thing I want you to leave here with. This chief, and I'll tell you, he's very humble up here, and I try and beat him in every day. This guy works 15 plus hours a day. He outworks me. I try and last him each day, but rarely does it happen. And he truly is available. Just when he leaves here, it doesn't mean he's not available. He's on his phone and on his computer and stuff. And that's my goal too. When you leave here, make sure you have our numbers. We're here for you. We're available 24/7. And we know as a police department that we can do better. Like I said, I believe law enforcement is an honorable profession. I've dedicated my life to it, but we're not perfect. And our goal is to listen to you. We are willing to change. We know change is necessary, but it's up to you folks to tell us in which direction to go. So as we're here today talking, I want you to leave knowing that we realize that, and that's why we're here, and we're open to that. So that's all I have. I appreciate it.
Can we celebrate our In talking with Chief yesterday, he said that he wanted to keep the dialogue going and he didn't want to wait 2 years. And so we said that we look at a date in the fall when the restrictions from COVID are over and we can come back. He says they want to do it again as a follow-up. One thing I appreciate is they both said they were not perfect, meaning that officers are human, they will make mistakes. But the greatest thing about our chief is he says when we make mistakes, we will be accountable to you to where you can bring them to us and we can discuss them. We don't get that everywhere, right? You don't get that everywhere. So that's all we have for tonight. The only thing I ask for you all to do is to email, write, tweet, Facebook, tell them to get Dr. Shepard on that motorcycle. I appreciate it. Just one time, all right. See you all soon.
Hey, what's happening, man?